The cabin buzzed with the usual pre-flight chatter, a mixture of overlapping conversations, the soft thud of luggage sliding into overhead bins, and the occasional ding of a phone being silenced. The scent of stale air and recycled perfume lingered as passengers shuffled past each other down the narrow aisle, finding their seats, settling into routines. Dr. James Carter, a man in his mid-40s with warm brown skin, short-cropped hair, and an easy, practiced calm, adjusted his seatbelt and exhaled slowly. He wore a navy blue blazer over a gray sweater, his polished shoes crossed at the ankles. His fingers gently flipped through the pages of a well-worn medical journal resting on his lap. He was heading home after a 4-day medical conference in Chicago. The trip had been exhausting, but productive, panels on cardiology advancements, late-night debates over ethics in medicine, and a few polite conversations that reminded him, once again, how rare it was to see someone like him at the top tables. Still, he'd made his mark, as always. As the plane doors closed, he glanced out the window. The runway lights blinked in the fading dusk, a quiet reminder of how many places he'd been, and how many times he'd been underestimated. The captain's voice came on over the intercom. "Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome aboard Flight 227 with non-stop service to Atlanta. Our estimated flight time is 2 hours and 23 minutes. James leaned back, letting the voice fade into the background. He was looking forward to seeing his daughter, Maya. She had a school project she couldn't wait to show him, a hand-drawn diagram of the human heart, proudly labeled and color-coded. He smiled just thinking about it. A moment later, a flight attendant approached, pushing a beverage cart with the practiced efficiency of someone who'd done it 1,000 times. She was in her mid-30s, tall, neatly dressed in the airline's navy uniform, her face professional but marked by a subtle tension, a tightness in the jaw, a glance that lingered too long. She stopped at the row ahead, serving drinks with smooth motions, plastic cups clinking, ice crackling in tongs. Then she arrived at row 3, business class, and her eyes paused on James. Her smile hesitated. "Can I get you anything, sir?" she asked, half smiling. "Coffee, black, please," James replied, glancing up from his journal. She looked at him again, this time more carefully, and then down at the boarding pass tucked in the armrest tray. A brief flicker of doubt crossed her features, followed by something else, suspicion? Irritation? "Are you sure you're in the right seat?" "This is business class," she said, not unkindly, but not warmly either. James didn't flinch. "Yes. 3A, he said simply, tapping the plaque above his seat. His voice was calm, steady. The flight attendant's lips pressed into a thin line. She said nothing more, just nodded, pushed the cart forward, and continued down the aisle. But she didn't bring the coffee. James exhaled slowly and returned to his journal, but the words blurred. He'd felt it before, this quiet dismissal, the unspoken disbelief that he belonged where he was. It wasn't new. Sometimes it came with a smile. Sometimes, like now, it didn't bother hiding at all. He watched her a few minutes later as she served drinks to the couple across the aisle, a white man in a suit and a blonde woman with pearl earrings, both of whom laughed politely at something she said. She handed them drinks, refreshed their napkins, moved on. But she never returned to him. James cleared his throat gently. "Excuse me," he said as she passed by again. "I asked for coffee earlier." She didn't stop walking. "I'll get to you when I can," she said, not meeting his eyes. Across the aisle, someone noticed. A younger man, early 20s, inconspicuous in a hoodie, lowered his phone slightly and tapped it to begin recording. James noticed too, the way the boy's eyes flicked between him and the attendant, then back to the phone. James leaned back again, jaw tight. Not here, he thought. Not now. Just as he was about to speak again, a violent cough erupted from the rear of the plane. Heads turned. A man in his 60s, seated near the emergency exit, clutched his chest and doubled over. His wife screamed. "Help! Someone help him! He's not breathing!" Panic surged through the cabin. The flight attendant froze. Someone rang the call button. James was already on his feet. "I'm a doctor," he called, already moving past the beverage cart, past shocked passengers parting like waves. When he reached the man, he knelt swiftly, checking the pulse at the neck. "He's in cardiac arrest," James said. His voice was clear, authoritative. "I need the medical kit and the AED, now." The wife sobbed. The flight attendant, suddenly pale, scrambled to obey. She returned moments later, trembling as she handed him the equipment. James worked quickly, CPR, defibrillator pads, counting compressions, adjusting airflow. The minutes passed like hours. The entire cabin held its breath. And then, a gasp. The man's chest rose, shallow at first, then again, more steadily. "He's breathing," James said. Relief softened his voice. "We'll need paramedics on landing, but he's stable for now." Applause erupted from the passengers. It spread row by row, some people standing, some clapping with tears in their eyes. The wife gripped James's hand and whispered, "Thank you. Thank you so much." James simply nodded. "Just doing my job." He stood slowly, his knees sore, his hands still trembling with adrenaline. As he walked back toward the front of the plane, passengers nodded at him, some whispered thank you, others offered a nod of respect. When he reached row 3, the flight attendant was waiting. Her expression was different now, the mask of professionalism replaced by shame. "I'm sorry," she said softly. "I shouldn't have." James held up a hand, not unkindly. "It's not about apologies," he said, meeting her eyes. "It's about respect." She nodded, unable to speak. James sat down, finally, as the captain's voice echoed again over the speaker. "Ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to thank Dr. James Carter for his quick response and professionalism. We're lucky to have had him on board today." The applause rose again, louder this time. James closed his eyes, not for recognition, but to steel himself, because even after saving a life, he knew this wasn't the last time someone would look at him and not see who he really was.